of teachers feel like they want to make their path or leave their legacy, we think Philadelphia is a place to do that. Because if it can be done here in this city with all of the challenges that we have, then we're creating a model for the rest of the country. And our district is going to look different because of the individuals who will be joining us today. And we'll be talking about a different problem as opposed to cutting and closing. We're talking about how do we expand, open, build new.
Folks, that is an ad, a part of Philadelphia's $160,000 campaign aimed at recruiting 1,000 teachers for the next school year. The goal is to hire enough teachers to replace those who retire and resign at the end of the school term. The starting salary for new teachers and counselors will be $45,360. For nurses, it's a little over $51,000. All right, joining us right now via FaceTime from Philadelphia, the Superintendent of Philadelphia, Dr. William Hite, Jr. Dr. Hite, clearly you have had some difficult issues there in Philadelphia, funding shortfalls, also back and forth with the state when it comes to funding. And so these 1,000 teachers, is this what you need annually in terms of losing teachers, or is this a push to add more teachers to your classrooms?
It's a push to add more teachers to the classroom, Roland, and good morning. And based on the fact that this is the second year that we have such a campaign, and as you introduced the segment, as you will recall, just 4 years ago, we were laying off large numbers of individuals here in Philadelphia because of budget cuts. And so the fact that we're now in hiring mode is pretty significant. But to your point, we have a 90% retention rate of many of our teaching force. And so that means just somewhere between 800 and 1,000 teachers every year that we will have to fill just because of attrition.
And obviously, we look at the shortage of black male teachers. That's something that's a problem all across the country. Are you doing anything specific in terms of partnering with any HBCUs to serve as a pipeline from those institutions to the classroom there in Philadelphia?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for that. So we actually have a campaign, HBCU recruiting campaign. And it's part of our diversity campaign, and that's to diversify our teaching workforce. And while nationally that number, particularly African-American males, is about 2%, we're doubling that in Philadelphia at about 4%, which is not sufficient given the population that we serve. But in addition, even with a population of just African-Americans in general in the teaching force across the country, that percentage is around not 7% nationwide. Here in Philadelphia, it's 24%. So it is, we're doing better, but we have a long ways to go in order to have better representation for the children we serve.
In our previous segment, I was talking about what happens with this Trump budget. Republicans, of course, control the House and the Senate. Will there be any sort of impact in terms of budget cuts in the Department of Education that could very well hurt the Philadelphia School District?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk, and well, I was listening to your segment before, and naturally I'm concerned because Philadelphia is one of the poorest large cities in the country, and so most of the impact that individuals, particularly individuals in circumstances of poverty, a lot of individuals who will be impacted by a lot of what had come out yesterday are individuals who live here in Philadelphia. And so naturally I'm concerned about that just in general, but more specifically, I have a significant concern about any effort to divert $250 million away from public schools and into a voucher-based system, because while that provides opportunities for youth who generally have opportunities already, it removes funding from districts like mine that then are challenged with educating all of the young people who remain in the system, and most of those young people have more significant issues. And so naturally, I'm concerned about that. And we'll be following that very closely.
All right, Superintendent, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. And again, I want to go to our panel there just to chat for a couple of minutes about this in terms, and I'll start with Jamila. We're seeing this across the country where school districts, frankly, have had to get far more creative when it comes to recruiting teachers, even offering signing bonuses. School systems now have to understand if you're competing for the best and the brightest, you're not going to be able to do what they did in the past, where somehow think, hey, if you teach for 30 years, you have a pension taking care of you when it's time to retire. They have to get far more aggressive when it comes to pulling in new teachers.
Absolutely, and a big part of that, in addition to signing bonuses, Roland, is paying teachers a good salary. You know, as one of many African-American first-generation college graduates, and I did teach very briefly when I finished school, remaining in the teaching field, unless I taught in private or charter schools, would not allow me to help my family out in the ways that I needed to. And by my family, I don't mean my child, I mean my parents. And I think particularly when you talk about efforts to recruit African-American male teachers, a lot of these brothers, too, are first-generation college graduates. So the idea of coming out of school and making a salary of, say, $40,000 in a large city and not being able to increase that significantly in a 5-year period means that teaching isn't always a viable option for people who we need in our classrooms. And that's why you have such a large teaching force of young white women who are coming into classrooms and communities that they are not familiar with, dealing with children and parents with whom they have very little connection, and being in a position to make decisions that impact the lives of our children in very devastating ways at times.
Joy?
Well, I think that I agree with everything that has been said. In addition to the stress of being a teacher in an inner city school, we also have all the standards that were put in place with the No Child Left Behind, where you're not actually teaching to the child, you're teaching the child to pass a test. So you can't really alter your curriculum or alter the way you teach in order to reach the children in your classroom. Somebody on high has told you how to do the teaching.
But I'll tell you, Barbara, at the end, but look, if school districts are going to get the best, they're going to have to be a lot more aggressive when it comes to recruiting, because look, other industries are getting even more aggressive at being able to pull the best folks.
Absolutely. And that's why I really respect what Superintendent Hite is doing, because we know that for low-income students, the most important thing is what's called enrichment. And that means you need teachers who can spend time with children who have special, particular learning problems or learning needs. And it's very important in our communities that we have that ability to have, 2 and 3 very talented teachers in a classroom of 40. These are the kinds of realities, and I am so happy to see that they're doing this. And I want to say we don't pay teachers enough. 45 is a decent salary, but it's not competitive when you look at some of the other fields and sectors that are out there. So let's, concentrate on that. Also, when we were talking about the budget earlier, the one thing we didn't talk about was the cut to after-school programs. 1.6 million African-American children benefit from these after-school programs that help not only to enrich their learning, to help them with their homework when their parents can't do that homework, and to help to feed the children. So I just think there's a lot of benefits that we have to really concentrate on in the education field, and I am proud of Philadelphia for taking the lead.
Shannon, real quick.
We've got to work on education. Education is the one true way out of poverty. Right. We've got to work on our urban education specifically. We've got some of our urban districts with so many different programs, yet we are not giving our kids that are coming out of those districts the tools that they need to be able to compete. There's something still not connected right.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally. What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.